So I was just sitting there hanging out with the man, and we got talking, and we were watching something on TV, and this guy, he didn't hustle down to first base, and the man said, "Oh, there you go. See what I'm talking about? People these days, they don't know how to work like you and I do." He said, "Dog, when I see you running out there on the fairways and gallivanting, you have that first sprint, you take off like Jesse Owens. It's beautiful. When you first, and your ears are flopping, and your tail is saluting, and you're just sprinting like a greyhound or whatever it is. You're sprinting. It's a marvelous sprint. It's like you burst out. It's wonderful." And I see that work ethic. And I was thinking when the man was rambling on about work ethic, I thought, this guy, he sells at 18 and over, he sells pornographic graphic novels, and to the 13 set, to the 13-year-old median age set, he sells imported illegal Uruguayan fireworks. This is how the man makes most of his money. He's not working very hard at all. So I didn't know what he was talking about, but he says, these people nowadays, this generations, these people today, they don't know how to work like you and I do. And I thought, okay, whatever. In my dog remembrance, if you go back to the old days, way before I was born, in the deepest recesses of my dog remembrance, you had two kinds of people. You had the kind of people that worked hard because somebody smacked them up in the side of the head when they were children. That's what they do for the children. They say, "You got to work," and they smack them. And if they have a little hesitation, or if they have a little hitch in the giddy up, they smack them even harder. And this is like, how you produce working people. And then these people can do whatever they have to do. Either you smack them, it's like the mercantile, the middle class, or the well-to-do, the well-heeled. They taught their children how to work by striking them. They struck them, and this was the teaching aid they used, and they made sure everybody had a good Puritan work ethic, so they could face any kind of object. They could do whatever they had to do. They could do whatever. They had it in them. They could work their way through it. Or else, if you didn't have that, at the time in the old remembrance days, the other thing you had was the people had to work to eat. Like they had to grow turnips and cucumbers and radishes, and they had to dig in the toil and scrabble. And if they worked really hard, they might have some eggs, some chickens. If they were really intensive, good hard workers, they had rabbit stew every once in a while. They had a warm house in the winter. They were very successful from the lower classes because they worked. They fooditized instead of monetized. They fooditized their work. They turned their work into food, and they sustained themselves that way. And if that's the two kinds of people you had. Everybody was white back then in the cities. Like it wasn't even called New York City. It was called like New Amsterdam or something. But everybody in there was all white, so you wouldn't have any kind of racial conflicts to create segregation. There was segregation created by work ethic. So you had the sustaining people. They sustained more rurally. You had the city dwellers. They instruct their children to success and to good work ethic. And then you had the lazy or the indegenerate people who didn't want to work so hard. And believe me, they were all one kind of people. They were all from, back in them days they were from Denmark or something. But they would drive the lazies into the corridors, into condensed neighborhoods, and they would house them there. And if they found the idiot, a savant, or some kid who could play the piano really good, or some kid who won the spelling bee, if he's standing up there in rags and he won the spelling bee, they would pull them out and they say, "The rest of you all stay there, you're too lazy. But if we have some winners, some idiot, a savant, some prodigies, we're going to pull them out, and we're going to, they're come out here and live with us." That was fine back then because everybody was the same people. It wasn't based on racism or anything like that. It was just based on work ethic and merit. But that was a funny time. That's way back in my old days, in the old times, in my dog remembrance. It came down to two kinds of people. You had the people who had to work to eat. They fooditized their work. And if they were very successful, they ate very well and enjoyed life. They loved it. They had some mead. They would mix in some mead or some grog, and that made it better for them. And then you had the little bit more well-heeled, the little bit more successful. They struck and beat their children. Don't get me wrong, the other ones, they beat their children as well, but in the upscale, it was more a striking and a beating, slapping them upside the head to beat the work ethic into them, and they would be successful that way. And that was what they did in those days. And that was in the old days. So I know in the old days, you had the people that would strike and beat their children into having a good puritanical work ethic, and those who had that work ethic ingrained in them because they would starve if they didn't. And then you had the lazy who they herded and condensed into neighborhoods that they would become slums in the future. But I don't really know what the man was talking about because he never worked, hardly a day in his life. He hires everything done. He's the poorest guy I ever seen who hires a maid. He has a lawn care professional come in and take care of his lawn. He has landscapers. The man makes almost no money, but he devotes a high percentage of his income to hiring other people to do work that he could well easily do himself. So I don't know what kind of work ethic this man's talking that he has, but he was saying that in the old days, people had a better work ethic, and it's because, in the oldest days, it was all based on work ethic and merit, and that's how you survived. But these new days, it's more like you're going to have to give me something. Somebody's going to have to give me something because I'm not working that hard. I made my mind up. I ain't working that hard. Somebody's going to have to give me something. I need to become an inheritor. Somebody's going to have to give me. So, but that was, that's the new days. In the old days, it was probably a little bit better. People a little bit tougher back then. So they, and also you had a little bit better, whatever you would call it, upward mobility, because it was based on, you could work your way up. So you had some good upward mobility. But, whatever. It doesn't matter to me because I'm just a stupid dog. And I've got a cushy life here with this man. And this man, I got to give him credit. He inherited, but he also does a little bit of work on the side to give himself a cushy life. So, it's not so bad. It could be worse.